Yeah, there we go. Now I can hear myself. Okay.
I didn't plug it in.
So did they hear me at all?
Well, I don't know. Probably not.
Okay.
No, we are.
So we are live today, and today is June 2nd or 3rd. Today's 3rd.
You can join if you want.
Is today the 3rd?
Today's the 3rd.
Today's the 3rd. Wednesday. Yeah. No, today's Tuesday. I can't get my
It's
days
Tuesday,
straight.
but it is the 3rd.
It is the 3rd, yes.
It is the 3rd of June.
Already. And
Summer. It's officially summer. I think when June hits, it means it's 100% summertime.
And I have a flannel on because
she's old.
this place. No, it's not because I'm old. I wore. Look at this. I wore summer clothes today.
You do not have to strip on camera.
I'm just, showing my.
Yes,
you may. And I put summer clothes on. I have shorts on and sandals. I only wear sandals in this place if I know I'm not going to be running my tail off. We had a lot of office work to do because payouts are in 2 days. So, yeah, and the reason I'm wearing a flannel is because this building is made of brick and concrete, and it's colder than bejesus in here yet, if you're not running around. So when people come in here like, oh, it's so cold, it's so cold in here, I'm like, yeah, we're going to keep it that way. Don't open the doors yet because the heat's coming, and once it heats up in here, you can't cool it down. So we have issues both ways. Last year was much better when we ran the air conditioners though because of the new roof, so that did help immensely with keeping it cooler in here.
What you eating, Gentry?
Yeah, Gentry's in the sidelines over here because she was doing payouts. Now we can do payouts from one location for both stores.
Oh yeah, chicken and
she
veggies
made
and
kebabs
rice
on the grill at her house this weekend for her prepping of her meals, and it smells delicious. It smells delicious. I think I need to do that as soon as I have time.
I have chicken marinating in like G. Hughes lemon marinade. I like that stuff. I did my. You don't. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got a bunch
I
of
haven't
that.
done the sweet chili. I have like a whole case. I that kind that I gave you guys.
Seriously, I still have 2 bottles in my pantry. But your dad won't eat anything that has spice in it. It's not even spicy, but he would think it is because it says sweet chili.
Sweet.
Sweet. He likes sweet.
Use a permanent marker and cross out the word chili.
Yeah, we always have to make exact opposites in my house to please both of our palates, which is annoying. Anyway.
So today we are going to kind of focus more on what we've talked about kind of in pieces so far in these last 5 episodes. This is our 5th episode of Brass Knobs and Back Talk. I know. 5 episodes. Already. That means we've been doing this for 5 weeks.
But she hasn't got them uploaded to.
Okay, well, we don't have to point out everything that I have to do.
I don't want to do it.
But they're uploaded through Facebook. People are watching.
You can watch them, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I need to like find some major course and learn how to do everything.
I found one. I
got to find some time to take a course.
I know. I found what I was going to take. No.
The only time I have to do that is which I have done. So.
In your car?
Yes.
Yeah, in your car.
While you're driving home.
Yeah.
I don't hold it. It's right there, and it just goes through my speakers, and then I listen.
Yeah.
I do that too when I rewatch us to see how stupid we sounded and looked. I put it on my holder when I drive home, and I'm like, oh my gosh, don't ever pick your nose again.
I don't watch them because I would never do this again if I watched them.
You're probably right.
Yeah, Gentry likes her front row seat in case you didn't hear her. I know, I'm so hungry.
I'm hungry too.
Oh well, we'll eat when we're done.
Now it's time to go home.
No. I don't go home that early.
No, I'm just saying, like, you know.
Anyways, so we are doing.
I started to talk about it. Yeah. We're little bits and pieces. We talked about how to be a vendor and how to do things the right way in this way or that way, or according to what we believe or we think you should do to succeed, at least here at Wheel and Spoke. So we decided that we're going to do, like literally 2 minutes ago, or maybe 5 now because we've rambled, that we're going to talk about specifically merchandising as a vendor and how to get your customers to really dive into your space. So merchandising doesn't just mean picking up the things and putting them in your booth. It also means how are you tagging things? How are you branding yourself? How are you utilizing your entire space from corner to corner, floor to wall, ceiling? Um, and does your items say something about you as a vendor? Are we kind of too all over the place? Or are we focusing on one thing? What is your per se theme and style? So we have touched on all of these pieces,
little bits and pieces,
very small aspects of all these pieces.
Right.
So we decided we're going to do a full episode on it. We're going to keep this an hour and under, and if you Snapchat me again and smile, I'm going to smack you in the face.
Who?
Gentry.
Talking to Gentry?
Yeah, you're right. The internet is working better.
Yeah. Oh, and we think we can roam the entire store now.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about tags.
Tags.
Really important. Tagging is important if you want credit for the items yourself.
Yeah. So the first part of merchandising obviously is picking up your items and buying them, right? So we all know that. We talked about
if you didn't like to do that,
you really talk about that per se. We just, we're like, make sure you try to grab from all aspects of types of resale, like your auctions, your resale garage sales, your marketplaces, heirlooms, things that have been given to you or passed down to you that you no longer are wanting or needing. All those things that kind of make you stand out as a vendor.
Right.
And that starts with, where do you get your things from?
Right.
Hello, Kathy. We are good. It's a good afternoon. It is nice outside.
Oh, I know. I bet it is. It looks sunny.
I am going to spend time in the allergy grass after this. Not this particularly, but after today.
So, and you're talking about, picking up your items that you need for your booth space. When you're looking for items and you're sourcing those items, think large items, medium items, and small items. You need all three to make a nice cohesive display in your booth. And large items are generally take up more space and they generally cost more. Not always, but
now sometimes you can get a really cool large item on the side of the street.
Well, yeah, you can. So what I'm saying is, you can't depend on just all large furniture and then make your rent. You may and you may not on any given month, but if you have different sized items and different priced items in your space, you will definitely be more profitable because not everybody can take large items or want large items and vice versa. They may be looking for large items and not small items. But your smalls, mediums and smalls definitely are what continuously makes your booth rent. And then you have other items that give you profit. So you have to think about that when you're sourcing. Don't buy all one size or, and you don't have any interest in your booth if everything's smalls. What do you do with smalls if you don't have furniture to sit on them? Sit them on. Well, it depends on what kind of mall you're in.
Right. Yeah. So overall, what do we expect you to do? Is kind of how we're going to throw this episode, right? How do we expect you to differentiate yourself at a different mall? How do you make the place where you are different from everybody else? And how do you make the items that you and 15 other people have in their booth, how do you make it stand out to the customer to pick yours? Well, first of all, are you purchasing good quality things, right? You're not just purchasing to fill. You're not just purchasing because, I haven't done it this week.
Yeah.
You're not, make sure that you really are tracking your sales and your purchases. You want to make sure that you're not just doing it to fill up an entire square. You are doing it to help a business succeed and yourself succeed as a hobby as well. If it's a hobby to you and you want to continue the hobby, well, the business you're under needs to be successful as well.
That's right.
So you get your space, right? This kind of brings us back to that episode where we did So You Want to Be a Vendor. So you have your space. The next thing after you've purchased a few things and you've decided you want to become this vendor is the big merchandising how-to. So you need to know your space. Is it carpeted? Do you have all 4 walls or 3 walls that are all pegboard? Are the walls all the way up, right? Are they the same height? Is your space a square? Is it a rectangle? Is it more of a corner spot? Corner spots you merchandise 800% differently than you do a square spot.
Right.
Go ahead.
Also, color paint on the walls. Like, what is it? Is it a dark color?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a light color? How's the lighting in that space that you're wanting to rent?
We do have a vendor that just, and she's been in here for a while, and she just changed. She changes her booth every week, which is great. But she also decided that she wanted her stuff to reflect a little bit differently. So she went from her walls being a white color pegboard, which she's got
they were gray.
whatever.
Gray, yeah.
It was a lighter
Mm-hmm.
color, and it kind of gave the vibe of everything looking nice because it was very well merchandised. But I think from what I picked up from the way it looks, she wanted it to have a richer appearance, something deeper, something that says this booth is this type of themed items.
Right.
And she's got 2 spaces, and the other space is all whites and chippy white colored things, and a lot of repurpose and upcycle, which is wonderful too. We encourage vendors to have a mixture of everything in here, or specific items within one space. So she actually has more of a country, not country, deep primitive country, modern primitive. Would you say that?
Yeah.
It's not like true, like a lot of the things aren't true like 1800s primitive, wood falling apart type things. They are a mixture of new and old primitive, and some nice pieces of deep, darker furniture that aren't necessarily primitive, but
they're
anyways. And then anyways, she paints her wall a very deep, dark green, and now all of the items in her booth reflect way differently.
Now, that being said, you can't just come in here and say I'm painting my booth a certain color.
Well, sure, you have to check out the regulations of your mall.
Yeah.
But communicating with the ownership wherever you are and stating, hey, I'm kind of wanting my booth to reflect this way a little bit more. My items have kind of shifted into what I was bringing in, or so on. I'm sure that
so
people
we're talking about
would...
walls. We're talking about walls right now, right?
Yeah.
What other things could they do with their walls besides paint to change it up?
Well, we have some people I know in our Centerville location who have utilized some walls to make it not appear all pegboard holes everywhere. Some of the vendors have done a really nice job in putting like a covering over them, which is like fabrics, burlaps, and different things like that help. And you don't have to do the entire wall space like that, but
maybe only one wall or a portion of a wall. And you could put curtains alongside it, or you could frame it out with, even wood if you wanted to make it just a section of it.
Yes, we have had vendors here and at our other location in Centerville that have taken like old barnwood siding, doors, have built actually. So say your space doesn't have walls, that could be something that happens too in lots of malls. And you want your space to kind of have a wall on one side, or you need some way to separate you from your next vendor without putting the dreaded bookshelf after bookshelf after bookshelf, or shelving after shelving. I would stay away from shelving as much as possible and try to use furniture pieces, because the shelving does not differentiate you. The shelving says I have small things that are worth very little, and I'm going to put them on a shelf as in a collective little things. And it doesn't really stop a customer in their tracks anymore. That definitely is more of a flea market style.
And you want to stand out. So if you're wanting to stand out and draw people in, the shelving thing is not the way to do that.
But let's say you have the shelves, okay, and so we're veering from the walls. Let's say we don't have a spot that has a wall, but our booth is divided by shelving, let's say, and the shelving comes with your space. One, you could ask the company that you're with, the ownership or management, if you can take the shelving out. Mm-hmm. Second of all, you could utilize the shelving in a way where you display on it in categories versus just knickknack after knickknack after knickknack.
Make
Or
vignettes.
go ahead.
Make vignettes for each shelf.
Vignettes,
Don't just pile it in there like
a vignette is a small grouping of arrangements.
Items, right? And make it look good with different heights and textures.
I have, the booth. There's several booths across from us, and I'm just looking down the aisleway. So, if you can't find furniture, I always say use shelves as temporary options. Mm-hmm. Use shelves to bring in when you have just sold a nice piece of furniture that you need to have display help with. Think about lighting still, even if it's a bookshelf. You've now limited the ability for anything to reflect because the shelving creates these dark spaces. So the eye for the customer is not going to travel to that unless there's something that's bringing them there. So there's the booth across from us has clear cut glass, which is hard to sell right now, but we actually did sell a good chunk of it this past week.
We did.
But she's got lighting that kind of helps the eye go back there. Right. Otherwise, you're not going to see it. You're going to see the bookshelf, and you're not really going to look inside.
Another thing that you can do for if you're stuck with shelves for a while temporarily or otherwise, shelves are usually all one color. You could take cardboard and cover it with fabric or the self-stick wallpaper. Cut them out the same. Cut the backing of your shelf. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the backing part in between each shelf. You cut the cardboard out and cover it with something that has color or maybe a design that goes with the rest of your theme, which would really make it pop and bring in another place to look. You'll see the items a little better if it's not so dark and it has something to look for in the back of that.
Mm-hmm. I would just say overall, you try to avoid the bookshelf style look if you can. Yes. Now, if it's in your space and like I said, if it's what's dividing your space, that is a different story. So figure out how to utilize it in the best way. Also, you don't have to use every part of the shelf. So I'm just thinking it doesn't really happen here in Wheel and Spoke too often. We don't provide any shelving. Yeah. You get your space and it's empty. Or it doesn't have a wall at all, and you have to figure out how to do that. And we have a vendor who's moving in this month, and she's doing an amazing job really developing her space before and after. I'm sure we have a before picture.
I'm sure we do too.
Anyways, we get so excited when our vendors put in so much time and energy into their space because that lets us know that, well, they're not going to waste their time on being here for a short period of time. They're not going to waste their time on bringing things in that are just worth pennies. They're really putting in some time and thought as to how they should make their space their own little store. So if you had back to the shelving thing, if you had a full booth full of shelves, I'm thinking of the very large space in Centerville that we had accompanied with our own things for a while because the booth is so big.
Right.
In the corner, booth 7, I think.
Yeah.
If you come into a situation where the only way that you...
Yeah, I just went crack, crack, crack.
Yep, something's cracking. That you couldn't... I lost my train of thought now because of that crackling noise. You didn't have enough things to fill that whole shelving unit. You could put up boards on front of the shelving and create your own walls.
You could.
You could put furniture pieces in front of that shelving unit. That is if they
weren't removable,
But in this case I'm talking about,
right.
they are not.
They are not removable.
The walls are lined with them. So you wouldn't have to keep things, right? Gentry says curtains, you create little window spaces for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do a bunch of different things. And the best thing for you to do is to start out by asking the people that own or operate the company that you're with and see if they have any suggestions or options for you. And that's also a really good way to determine if you are in the space that you should be in. Your place you are in as a vendor, your leaders and the place should really be able to give you some ideas and help out.
Right. So we got the floors or the walls talked about.
Right, the walls, which don't freak out about. And I think a lot of people freak out when they don't have walls. And to me, it's like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. There's endless opportunities you could do. You could change it all the time if you wanted to. I mean, cost depending for yourselves, but it does not limit you as much as having 3 walls and making you in a square spot. So yes, floors we talked about, or walls we talked about. We talked slightly about floors, whether or not they have carpet or not. If they do or don't, what would be your suggestion? That always brings
Oh,
the
actually,
space together.
area rugs.
Mm-hmm.
Or, not even big ones. You could do several small ones. The only, any type of rug will make the space come together. It'll make it more cohesive. It'll give you a grouping feel, a warm and cozy feel. The only thing that you really want to be careful of is so that your rugs lay flat. And if they want to curl up, you might want to put some double-sided carpet tape underneath them so people don't trip and get hurt. But rugs definitely make a huge difference on the floor in your booth space. And not everybody has rugs. I wouldn't say everybody would have to have rugs, but it does maybe add a color theme to your booth.
I don't know if we have many vendors that haven't utilized putting a
I know,
rug in.
but we didn't when we first came in.
Yeah.
But then we started using them a bunch, and then more and more people.
It gives you an opportunity to
make
soften your space a little bit.
And it makes it your own.
Vibrant. Yeah, you can add lots of color and pop.
Yeah.
With the flooring, if you don't want to, or can't commit to doing that with the walls.
So we've had a couple vendors actually. One vendor years ago had painted their floor space because it was on concrete. They did the black and white check thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty too. Another thing is someone actually laid flooring, like a wood floating floor over the top. Of course, you would have to ask your mall owners if that was okay.
We have these little restroom spaces here, and temporarily I was filled with one, and I just went out and bought
self-stick wallpaper.
Wallpaper, yeah. Are you causing that to crack by messing with that?
No. Sorry, I'm touching the wire. Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe it's not a problem, but I think it's a problem. It drives me crazy. Not you, the crackling.
Right.
Anyways, the floor in the small space we went ahead and put stick-on wallpaper on the floor, and then put like a runner in there, so it kind of kept it down.
Mm-hmm.
But it gave the whole floor a different look. It wasn't a large expense because it was a small space, but it changed the way the small space
felt and
reflected. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that some floor tiling in some of our other small spaces behind us that really changed the whole look of the space too.
It does.
So if you don't have carpet, add some kind of softness, because that helps with the customer invite you in. You don't, especially if you have a large space. And if you have a large space, think about ways to utilize it as in two separate spaces almost, because it gives you the opportunity to bring in different merchandise and reflect. So you can keep one space more seasonal or more upcycled items or whatever you want to do, and the other one is more of a theme or less of a theme.
Right.
Tools, or maybe you got
husband and wife team, and
or you came across a large lot of rustic pieces or something, and it doesn't really go with what you typically have in your space, but if you keep that in a collection, it makes sense. If you scatter it throughout, it doesn't usually make sense. It will cause your customers to walk past you usually.
Now, that being said, if you did have say two people were sharing the booth and you had very opposite tastes, how would you make your spaces look more cohesive, like by putting them together? How would you be able to put them together? Say if it was masculine and very feminine, could you put them together yet?
Yeah.
Yes. And how would you do that? I mean, color is one way to bring all that together. Like maybe you have a color theme going on in a certain vignette or a certain section of your space. You could put metal with soft fabrics. Here again, Brittany's texture thing. She likes her different textures. Yeah. But you definitely can mix more than one style together. You just want it to make it look cohesive by, colors. A lot of times colors do that. What do you think?
Colors, time, eras, maybe you look at everything that you have, and for these 4 months, you're going to make your space reflect a living room, or you're going to make this space reflect a men's tool shop, or, like how do you categorize the items that you currently have in maximizing, the merchandising abilities in your space. So we talked about items that you can bring in, right? We talked about the flooring options. We talked about the wall options, and something else you can think about is your ceiling space. Right. We encourage a lot of our vendors make sure they don't forget about the 4 foot above your shoulders that you're also paying for. Keeping in mind that your customers can still reach those things with help or on their own. But we've seen in lots of spaces where they'll take a board and they'll kind of go diagonally, so that way you can choose to hang things up from the ceiling spots. We have vendors in here who've used ladders that kind of go across. Excuse me. We have kind of a different advantage here where we have a lot of ceiling drop down poles, wood, whatever that have come down from the ceiling just from years of it being factory. And they've hung things from pole beams and so on.
Right.
So just be creative with the space that you're in. And those are your first steps. So you've talked and thought about the different design abilities that you can change and utilize where the space is that you are in. But the biggest step is to place the items. And how do you place them? But before that happens, you must consider how you're tagging your pieces. Okay,
that's true.
Yeah. So how you tag your pieces also reflects you as a vendor, whether you think it does or not. Certain ways you tag could reflect on your items being worth anything.
True.
They could reflect on the time that you spent with that item. So as a customer, customers who come in here normally want an experience. They want a feeling. They want to go home and remember something from here. And if they feel that this is just customer psychology in any place they go to, you as a customer, if they feel connected to the place where they were shopping, more likely to come back. So if a tag even was funny, if it had some kind of characteristic to it that really grasped them, they're going to remember that space and they're going to definitely check it out the next time they're back. It also is good when we're talking about theft. So when your customers are bringing tons of things up, and let's say, we got 160, almost 170 booth spaces here now, right?
Probably, yeah.
What was the last number? Do you remember that I printed out?
Well, I don't remember.
Yeah, so spaces that we've developed. So, we started in the 90s, I think, as far as available spaces that we could rent out. And now here at Wellness Book, we're up to 155, 160 spots that we have developed into spaces for different vendors. But anyways, when you got that many spots and spaces that you're a part of in a mall and the customers bring things up, if there is a unique way to keep your items categorized, so by being consistent is what I'm trying to get at. So if you're going to have this square pink tag, per se, just looking at the booth across from us, and that's going to be your signature tagging, that's going to help out tremendously when we're talking about theft. So when people would come up to the counter, we would know, we get familiar with tags. And if we don't recognize something, first of all, we're going to probably check, is it a new vendor? Second of all, did this customer reticket, which is theft. So meaning they made their own ticket, they brought them in and they re-put a tag on this piece. And that happens. That happens all the time. Not to scare anybody away, but I mean, like, people do that everywhere in retail, not just here.
Well, yeah, that'd be another episode.
Theft.
Yeah.
I don't think we're experts. We need to bring in like the cops for an episode or something.
That'd be a good one.
But yeah, there's a whole other science behind theft in retail. But still, those things keep you in check a little bit better. But they also make your things more cohesive, and then your eye doesn't necessarily focus on tags as much because you're looking more at the items, and the tags are just there versus having big signs of bright yellow, orange, green things, paper that you just written on. Those things are. Yeah.
I mean, don't. Yeah.
The little yellow sticker tags that you find that have auction numbers on them, or garage sale tags, sticker prices, those become a little bit more tacky. Those reflect your items as something that's not worth me repurchasing. I should have bought that on the side of the road when it was available versus buying it here as a better piece.
Right.
Per se.
So yeah, if you make your tags stand out, people that work in your mall will definitely know. They know what to expect. They know it's your item, that they know what kind of style that you have. And then some customers actually want to save your tags, which is okay. We'll give them to them. We'll just write down the information that we need because they want to remember who you were and what space you were in and whatnot. So we do that too. But
so another thing we encourage vendors to do is kind of come up with a space name or company name that they resonate with. So we have multiple vendors in here who have done that. Relove Reclaim is one. Sycamore Antiques is one. Aunt Crazy's Closet we have here. We have Old Time. What is theirs? Old Time. I think this might be called Old Time. Old Time Antiques. We have. I don't know. There's
Maria's
so
Closet.
Many. Yeah.
There's a bunch. I just don't remember all.
There's a lot.
The gate and fence, between the gate and fence post is one.
Yeah, so to come up with a name for your space, that kind of also gives the customer a more rich experience shopping with you as a vendor because they know that you're in it. You're doing, they're doing the hard work for them to enjoy what you're purchasing.
Right, to make your own sign up. And it also shows your personality in your booth. And I think anybody that has a name for their space needs to make up a sign that's really cool. Reflects your personality and what you sell. And that just kind of makes the whole little space look like a store.
Yes, Dylan, we like your tags too.
Is that? Dylan? Oh,
yeah. Large circle yellow tags with your logo.
Yes.
That's a great idea too.
Yeah, because it's unique. Nobody else has that.
Right. But the cool thing he did, talking about Dylan, he had mentioned his own tagging creativity. And it wasn't just taking a piece of yellow paper and writing the price on it. He probably did the research, knowing as a vendor, he probably did a research, looked around, how can I make my tags different than other people's? And so he didn't put it in a square. He first of all cut them in a circle. And then the cool thing was there's a consistent logo on each tag, and it was a stamp, a simple stamp. So, he grandma's
kitchen,
grandma's house, with a little rocker on it. And that is his brand. Right. He branded his space. And then now in his buying side of things, he's also branded what he will be bringing in. So he knows that his store is called Grandma's House, and he's going to be bringing in things that reflect his logo only. Keeps customers going straight to that space when they know they want something like that. So great idea. Great.
We have another one way in the back that has a kettle.
Yeah, iron kettle.
Iron kettle, and it's the shape of a iron kettle, which is kind of cool. And he has lots of, he does have iron kettles and all sorts of glassware in his booth, but it's primarily the hard surface items that he has in there. And he sells a lot. Mm-hmm. He merchandises well, and he brings in the like items, like
they're in
tag
both,
reflects.
Yeah, he's in both malls there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tagging is good. Writing and being legitimate on tagging, as well as, for your purposes as a vendor, writing things on the tags that are going to be easy for you to know what you sold, for sure. And also correlate with the item. So something that makes us for sure know that customer didn't come in and retag that thing as a theft piece. It definitely reflects exactly what you wrote to describe your piece, right? You don't want to become too wordy though. And I always say if you're going to have more of a description of your piece, which is wonderful because it lets the customer know that you're buying this piece and here's the story behind it, or here's the reason why I want to buy this because it's from 1920s and it was in Victoria's house. Whatever. If you have a small story with it, you could do that. You could have two tags where you could have some kind of story tagging system. Or this piece was brought down from 5 generations of the same family, blah, 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 and now it's ready for your home. Right. Those types of things really make people, especially individuals shopping who are in their 30s to 60s, I would say, really resonate with stories when they buy. The feeling. Why am I buying that?
Value.
Right. It gives it value, but it gives it a purpose to be in your space now because it was a cool piece. So, but if you're going to write things on it, I would suggest always keeping things simple on the front as far as price, item description, and vendor number, and then on the back, or whatever your mall requires, and then on the back of the tag, write a description. That also helps keep down the theft, because no one's going to have time to rewrite all that. And when that comes to the mall or to the counter, we're going to know that, oh, this person usually has a description on the back of their tag. So we're going to look into that a little bit. But anyways, tagging 101 is probably a whole nother thing, but we've kind of gone into that a little bit.
So when you start putting your booth together,
merchandising itself,
when you start putting your booth together, what's the first thing you would do besides you laying up? Maybe if you're going to use a rug, lay your rug down first, because you don't want it to move stuff after. Do it the opposite way. But what would be the first items you brought in? Your larger items.
But your larger pieces first. And get a vision or draw it out on a little piece of paper. Like, where would they look the best at in your booth? You don't want too many large items right in front. Taller items should go maybe featured in the back or in your corners if they're taller. And then you could work the medium-sized ones up in front a little bit. So start out with your larger pieces or your main pieces first. One thing that I think is important to think about too is making your space seem even in weight.
Yes.
Visually even in weight. So if you are, if you have a small space, let's say, and you have pieces that you want to sell, just because you have a small space don't mean that you cannot have a large piece of furniture or 2 or 3, because utilizing the space the best way possible is to make sure you have pieces of all sizes. But make sure you don't put all of one color or one material or one weight from the eye. So heavy cabinets and bookcases, whatever, all on one side, and then an empty wall on the other would not be
at all
a good visual for customers to flow, because they're going to just gravitate towards one side. Or let's say they came up from the aisle one way and not the other, and they've missed your whole other ability of items that they could have purchased. Yeah.
So weight. You have to
visualize your weight in items. Right. Yes.
So if you have a large buffet on one side, maybe you have a medium-sized dresser and a chair on the other side, so it balances out.
I always think about your middle. I get bored and kind of sick of the same consistency from booth to booth. So if your neighbor is constantly merchandising with just a round table type piece in the center with build up, try to change it out, at least, especially from neighbor to neighbor. How do you make yourself stand out in the way that you display and merchandise your pieces versus your neighbor? But utilize your middle space. Don't just
have things on the edge.
Right. And then think about, how much wall space do I have? And if I do have large pieces, does my large piece have to go towards a wall? No. It could go in the front where it kind of blocks off one spot. Now you've created a cool little nook behind that piece that you could use. Always think about the flow of the customer. So you want to invite them in and want them to walk around in your space, not just look into your space.
Because if they can see everything from the outside, there's no reason for them to go in.
And they will not find all your cool little pieces.
Give them a reason. They see something, but they're not quite, and it looks really interesting. I'm going to walk in and walk around that piece of furniture to see what's behind that. Or, maybe you have the middle part, maybe 3/4 of the way up. Maybe your display goes up that high. You can see what's on the back, but not quite. So you're going to walk in and check the rest of it out. So yes, that brings them in.
Yeah. So the main topic we're talking about is merchandising your space. When you're actually building pieces, how do you suggest them to start?
With the larger pieces, and then
right. When you're building your pieces, your displays, what would you start with?
Well, after the main, like if there's your furniture or larger pieces are in, next I would bring in some smaller or medium-sized items that would fill in some spaces, maybe build on top of the ones that you've just got in there. So if you have a table in the center, maybe you want to do a box on top of that and a tray with a picture or something that what you're getting at? I'm not sure you're asking
Yeah,
me
I guess.
questions that I
Yeah, I'm
understand.
just.
I know how to do it, but how am I explaining this?
So you have your bigger pieces in there.
Right.
You've
So then you're
talked about
bringing
your
medium-sized pieces in.
you talked about your flow of your booth. You
Right.
talked about how you want your first setup and your layout to look. Now you're bringing in your small pieces. Do you just throw all those small pieces in a piece, or how do you
Right.
how do you go about making sure that, okay, I have 16 things of all the same height and color and type of material and all this. Do I put them all together?
Okay, so this is a loaded question because
It is a loaded question.
it's a loaded question. You could do it a couple different ways. If you have a collection, say you have a collection of all blue spongeware, and you want to display it in your booth to catch people's attention, I would put it together in a small vignette or a grouping so that when they're walking by, they knew what they were looking for. They see a whole bunch of it, like, oh my gosh, right there it is. I'm going to purchase that.
But even if they're the same type of piece, you want to make sure that you're elevating in certain
Right.
ways.
So you don't want to lay them all out. See if they're all vases and pitchers and bowls and they all stand about the same height. You want to give it levels. So you might put a book underneath something. Put the pitcher here, put a bowl here, sit the bowl on a book or a little box. So you want levels. Every time you put a level in, your eye flows from one area to the next.
Also makes you realize, hey, there's something else there.
Right.
It's not just one type of piece of the collection that I'm seeing. I'm actually, oh my gosh, there's 20 pieces to this one collection.
Right.
Where if you would have stacked them on a shelf, one in front of the other, that customer has walked by and didn't realize that there was this beautiful large collection of this item. That goes for things that are not even of a like collection.
Right.
So making sure you use different types of risers. So when, this was a suggestion we thought about doing, is talking about our favorite types of risers and ways to display like that. So we're just kind of grouping it all into this one merchandising episode. But what are some good riser type things? And you've mentioned some already. The books,
trays, boxes, books, little easels work, baskets and trays mixed together are a good level thing. What else? Stacks of dishes. You could use, like, if you have stacks of plates that are maybe, not to a collection but a set. You could put things on top of that. Always think of layering and not just layering in height but also layering from front to back because it all adds interest. Like if you're doing
we've talked about too, I think it was on here. No, it was on one of our live sales, and we've showed how you could flip the bowls different ways.
Right.
You could insert like clear Dixie crystal glass throwaway cups within your bowls to stack those bowls so that people walking by see that you've got a full set of 5 or whatever of these bowls that are now a matching set that tier up. Think of ways to display where the people don't necessarily have to come in and pick everything up to see what you have and a value that you have, but also show what you have, showcase what you have. The other thing is making sure that you're very transparent and letting the customer know if there is a default or a fault in the piece.
As is and what's wrong with it.
Right. That also helps us from saving calling you. Like, hey, this has a chip in it, and the customer noticed that. Will you take less?
Yeah.
If you're transparent already on the tag, our answer usually is going to be they've already acknowledged that there is a default in this product, and that's why they've priced it the way they have.
Right.
So
we
talked about levels.
Levels. What
besides
else?
Levels, we've talked about the big one of texture.
Soft versus hard, cold versus warm and cozy, and
putting different fabric pieces and material pieces in categories or breaking up different areas. Yeah, you can come through. You're more than welcome.
So when you have all of your little spaces kind of decorated where you have levels, what's your final, like to make it all pull together? I feel like greenery is one of those final things.
But what if your booth is not feminine?
It's true.
What would you do?
I don't know.
Put her on the spot.
It depends.
I would say that if
it didn't have to be greenery.
No.
It could be fabric-y too, even if it's like you're saying masculine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, smalls, like I would add my small pieces to my vignettes or my decorating or merchandising last. So say you have tools. The very last thing you would put in those areas that you were decorating would be like maybe a little box that has nails in it, or you know, um, a little jar with something. The smalls always go in last, the tiny pieces that add that extra accent. It doesn't have to be all soft.
And I would always say that even though your booth is primarily not decorative style or more dainty, doily type style, or something that would make sense to have a quilt in it, or different types of fabrics or blankets or greenery in it. Um, let's say you have a full space that has cast iron, it has metal, it has tools, it has this and that. How do you make that space look amazing? First of all, being organized, being clean, making sure that your tag is descriptive and letting that customer know what it actually is and was used for. So doing your research makes that booth unique. Um, because overall, I would say the male audience that come through like to learn when they come through. They like to know when they pick up this piece of metal, why would they want to buy it? And if this vendor tells me that it was from the 1900s, famous railroad man who used it to nail in railroad ties, they're buying it because now they got a story to tell their other guy friends. Okay. So information is kind of your missing piece. Like in a more decorative type booth, you've got the greenery to tie things in, you've got the softness of fabrics and blankets. And in more masculine style booths, you have information.
Yeah.
You've got paper that softens down the metals, so it tells you more about the piece. You could also think about incorporating different kinds of workwear. So talking about like old gloves. Even if they're not for sale, you could put NFS on them, whatever, not for sale. But it kind of breaks up that piece, makes that look a little bit like richer per se, in the customer wanting to purchase it. You could think about denim. If you have an old pair of pants, you could literally rip up some pants and put them as pieces that you set different things on right here and there. So that's if it was a feminine booth, you would have like doilies you would do that with. Or you would stick a piece of green.
How about the work rags that you use?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the red grease rags. Right. So now that we've talked about this, now you should be envisioning in your head this entire booth full of these manly hard pieces, that if you didn't incorporate it, it's literally just a junk pile, right? You didn't merchandise it, you didn't display it, you didn't add different textures to throw that customer in, but you still want to have the option and not availability, the option and the intriguingness, to want that customer, especially male customers, if that's your main base, to want to come in and spend time. And the one thing to do that is put categories of things together. She talked about buckets of nails. Let's say you have a lot of silver type things. You could put those in categories. I'm using rusty buckets to kind of display and categorize different things. So you've got a lot of military bullets, different shrapnel type things.
I feel like helps too with masculine booths, because there's a lot of hard surfaces, is to give your items space. So don't overcrowd them, but give them, like when you're looking
more museum type display.
Yeah, because then you can see what it's there, because all those tools are the same color, they're all the same hardness, and you don't see them until you know. So if you give them space to breathe, you see that individual item. So that displaying them more individually, still in collections, but more individually, giving them the space
and making sure they're clean.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a huge difference.
Making sure they're not rusty and dirt, or not rusty, but not oily and so on. And if they are, maybe because you don't want to ruin what the piece is, or the history, or the time frame that piece has been in the world, by cleaning it by any means. But let's say you have an old oil can, okay, and you don't want to empty the oil out. That's part of the coolness of it. It still has something in it. And you think about that with old pop cans and stuff, like, oh, this is still cool. Right. But you could, like we talked about, some kind of piece of fabric, you could layer 2 pieces of denim underneath it, and that, maybe with a little white dish that you found, that you set that oil can on top of, to make it not leak everywhere. And now that customer is aware that this probably is being displayed with a purpose, or even simply folding up a paper towel underneath the oil can. Lets the customer know that, hey, you are going to pick this up and you're going to become part of its world. You're getting dirty. So
right. Or even, I think another thing would be like cardboard that has decorative lettering on or anything that you could cut up from old packaging would be great to use for color and softness as well in this kind of food.
You could get creative and even use like old manuals.
Oh,
like, farm machinery manuals. You could cut a couple of those out
along with it.
You could even have your partner person help you, decoupaging those farm machinery type manuals or instruction manuals to pieces of cardboard and use that as like your backdrops and your
there's so many
different things.
Ideas on that. We should do one.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew after I started talking about my ideas, I'm like, now I want to do that. You want to do a masculine booth, which we could very
easily do that. Yes. Yeah. So we've kind of encompassed everything from start to finish. I don't know. I mean, if you folks have any questions, we probably can't see them now, but our time is almost up. But go ahead and ask us. We could always answer them. We would love to answer questions about this.
Yeah, the biggest thing about merchandising merchandising your space is making sure that you're using your whole space in the right way, making sure there's a flow for the customer, making sure their eye goes back to every bit of your booth, making sure somehow, some way, it makes it stoppable for the customer. Sometimes the best way to learn that is to be a secret shopper.
Yeah.
Literally come in and walk around like you are a customer yourself, because you are usually too, and watch the people in your space. We learn a lot actually double working here, doing these podcasts and lives and stuff, and being able just to kind of sit and watch people walk in or out or around or not at all into spaces, and what they pick up and what they don't will help you tremendously. So also, I would say on the back end to kind of incorporate the merchandising is making sure you're tracking what you're selling and what you're not selling, and then figure out why. So it could be the way it's displayed. It very well could be the way it's priced. It very well could be that the piece just isn't worth it to anybody's collection.
And that is one thing we didn't cover about, being a vendor is your pricing. Everyone has to make money. That's why most people are do it, besides being a hobby for some. But go around, just like she said, be a customer first and check out other spaces. And you can see what the spaces are if it's similar to your style. Look at the prices on some things, maybe similar items that you have, because you don't want to overprice yourself, because then they're going to go on to the next booth or the next space to find something similar that they may like a little bit less costly. But you don't want to undercharge either, because then it takes away value. So there's always a happy medium for pricing, and every type of item is so different. There's no standard. We talked last time about you should make a certain percentage off each item. So keep that in mind. What do you always say? You make like 60% off of what? I don't know what you always say. Everybody has their own thoughts on that. Like I always say at least double.
You're talking about what your markup should be.
Markup should be right.
That just is not a general
flat term. It's not a flat term. It's because
really what you need to consider the amount of travel and time that you've had to prep and prepare to bring that item in, as well as the cost that you now have in your merchandising fees, your own merchandising things that you've done to cover your costs of your booth space. But overall,
you want a certain percentage.
You want to make a profit, and you're not going to make that profit for the first how many months usually, because you've got a lot of back costs and things, and you're building your inventory, and you're doing this, maybe without knowledge, and that will grow with time. But if you're finding yourself always in the hole, first of all, you probably have too much back inventory, because you got to think about inventory that's sitting not on your floor as part of your profit. So if you can't utilize ways to sell it, or it doesn't move, how you need to find an outlet to make that move, or you're not making money. And then kind of adjust, right? You start out, maybe you double your price on some things, maybe you only go up 35% on some things. Maybe some things you got to sell at cost. I don't know. Some things you might lose on just because you thought it was a wonderful deal, or you planned on keeping it for yourself and now you're selling it, but that piece isn't going to sell maybe in a certain location as it would in another for the price that you have it on. So really think about location and everything when pricing. I know this episode kind of turned into a little bit more about pricing than merchandising, I feel like, but merchandising, it starts with the eye. Will bring that customer in, then they're going to look at the tag. Okay. So keep things in mind. Also, we talked about the tagging, putting information with the tag helps. It also helps distract the mind of the customer whether or not the price is too high, because now they've connected with the piece in a different way where the price doesn't matter. So just different things like that can help you. But overall, we really, really, really encourage you to be as creative as possible when merchandising. Merchandising meaning setting up your space and how you display your items, and utilizing the space you have. It's going to be the most fun for you.
I think sometimes, what we should do, ask a couple people to come in, and it could be customers. And we'll do this little fun
test.
It's not like a test, but
we'll
have. You're calling it a psychological test? I'm not.
The psychology of customer. Well, you wouldn't say that. It's called. That's what it is. You are literally testing customer psychology.
Okay.
Right? You if I read your mind before you said it, you were going to set up some spaces and ask them why they chose to pick up that or why they chose to go in there.
I was going to, not exactly, but I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a bunch of items over here and a bunch of items over here and have two people set their own space up with their own items just to see, and then we could critique.
We could go vendor merchandising wars 101 or something.
I don't know. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds fun.
I think to make that fair, it would have to be we would grab a collection of very alike pieces.
Right.
Yes.
And let them do this little.
These are all this very similar pieces from one to another, and merchandise it, and then see which ones go best.
Right.
Best
you guys could comment. Say, who wants to be abused like that?
No. And that might not be the reason only, too.
Right.
For some things to go. So tomorrow we have a live because we've been in this chit chat for about an hour on merchandising. So we're going to stop there with that. But tomorrow, Wednesday the 4th, we have a live, and you are not here.
I'm not here. No. I got to go shopping, I guess. I don't know. We're going to go to, should I say where we're
going? Sure. You can document it.
I know. That's what Julie and I said we would document it. We're going to Shipshewana tomorrow.
Is it just you guys or all 4 of y'all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been years and years since any of us have been there, so we don't know what we're going to run into. But sometimes it's easier.
Maybe instead of a live, because it's just me, I'm just like mentally falling apart here in my lap. Oh, is she?
Yeah. Gentry's doing live for it with you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
You have help.
Okay.
You can't do it by yourself.
I did.
I know, but that's not. No, you and Gentry are doing it tomorrow.
Okay. We'll do that.
Yeah.
But I challenge the 4 of you. So we're talking about Angie and Gary, the owners here of Wheel and Spoke and Centerville, and then some of the couple here that has a booth or a couple spaces in each mall as well, Sycamore Antiques. They have a friendship, and they're going to Shipshewana tomorrow, which is great to see what other places alike have. And they have lots more than what we can offer too. I challenge you 4.
Okay. What are you going to challenge?
The ladies versus the men. And I want you each to do a video.
Oh, no. Okay, this will be fun.
Yeah. Of you have to come up with your own type of theme for the video, whether it's what's that called, flea market flips or whatever, something like that. And whether it's, I could see the gentleman probably running with this idea, but kind of going one of the camera, one in the front, I pretty much know which one's gonna be which. And they're going to go in and they're going to kind of be like, let's take a look at what we got in here. And they're going to talk about how cool these pieces are and whatever. But you ladies will have to come up with a different idea, possibly, of how you could use this or what this is or this is cool or why you bought it. And then I want to see it. I want to post it on Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
Wish I knew how to post things better.
Well, I mean, it's all you got to do is video it, and then we'll figure it out.
I know, and then we'll figure it out. Yeah. All right. We'll do
I want that challenge. It's only like
I hope it doesn't rain.
15-minute like video live type thing. You don't have to do it live. It'd be more fun if it was live.
It'd be more fun. Maybe I'll do it live and then do that too. Oh God.
Anyways, so tomorrow we'll be live. We don't have a theme in mind yet, Gentry and I. Maybe there won't be a theme tomorrow.
And you're going to go walk through the booths like we did last time?
Yes, it'll be similar to last week's.
Yep.
We're going to do a part 1, part 2, where we'll go through the mall. We're going to do one side of the mall now that we've got a little bit more internet figuring going on. We'll start on one side and then go through some things and pick out at least an item per space. And then we'll do a part 2 where it will post. It won't be live, but it'll post later. The only reason we do that is because it connects our videos. So people who had the chance to watch us live may forget by 7 o'clock p.m. after you made 3 suppers and changed 10 diapers that you don't remember that that's happening. But it will notify you that something happens here. So if you would like to join us for our lives, make sure you like our events, that they're posted, and comment, share, like, whatever you need to do, as well as with these podcasts. So we'll continue next week with a podcast, I believe. I know my month of June is very, very screwed up and busy, so I'm trying to decide. But I think that next week we should invite one of our vendors.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So if one of us at least can't make it, we still have a good thing going on. I don't know what I'm trying to look at what the date is next week. The 3rd, so around the 7th or 8th. Yeah.
What is
the 9th is Monday, I think. So, which it's terrible. Yeah. Me and my 2 kids are going to the dentist at the same time, so we'll probably all have to have cavities filled. So I need to take a loan out. Yeah.
All right.
So we'll be back on the 4th with our podcast with probably a guest vendor, and then
on the 4th.
The 10th.
Okay.
What did you ladies find?
We're buying a crocky.
What are you going to do with it? There you go. Kitchen utensil crock. Okay. One of these days we're just going to sit somewhere and just talk to every customer that comes by.
Hey, that'd be fun too.
I'm like, oh, here's the next customer. What you got? What you find? We'll do that one day. Okay.
We will talk to you or see you later. She's on tomorrow.
Yep.
I won't be here.
Okay. Thanks for watching.